It's been a long time since we've talked about what happened between David Dobrik and Jeff Wittek or had any updates when it comes to their ongoing lawsuit. David took himself off of YouTube and the only place you can find him now is on Snapchat, and Jeff is not happy about that. Jeff took to Twitter to call out Snapchat for giving David a platform and allowing him to make a living and travel the world. He also revealed some new information about what David and Natalie did to him after his accident, and it's not looking good for them. It's a mess, so let's get into it. As we all know by now, David Dobrik and Jeff Wittek haven't been friends for a few years now after David nearly killed Jeff with an excavator. Jeff continued his friendship with David after the accident happened. David was paying Jeff's medical bills, but things quickly took a turn for the worse. Not only was David constantly late paying for Jeff's medical expenses, which ultimately affected Jeff's credit rating, but he also started passing the blame onto Jeff behind his back. During Casey Neistat's documentary on David, David fully blamed what happened on Jeff and even went on his own podcast and tried to make it look like it was all Jeff's idea. Safe to say, they're no longer on good terms, and Jeff has been in a legal battle with David for the last 2 years. Jeff has since gone on to have his own extremely successful podcast, Jeff FM. He has his barbershop series and even created his own line of hair care products. David, on the other hand, he's been missing from YouTube for the past 2 years, and at first it seemed like maybe he switched over to TikTok, but now he's almost exclusively on Snapchat. A lot of creators switched over to Snapchat when Snap introduced their new creator fund. They've been paying their creators a lot of money to be on the platform, and these influencers are making more money than ever before simply by posting a few stories throughout their days. David has been doing little daily vlogs over there, showing what he's been up to, showing himself traveling, buying cars, and pretty much living the same way he was living before he quit YouTube. You would think that maybe he would slow down a bit, knowing that he doesn't do YouTube anymore, and knowing that he's in the middle of a pretty big lawsuit, but he hasn't. Well, Jeff is not okay with Snapchat allowing David Dobrik to still have a platform, and he's calling them out. He said the whole reason he stopped posting on Snapchat is because David's on there. He tweeted, "Yo, at Snapchat, you're paying a guy that smashed my skull in for a prank and left me with lifelong injuries. He also filmed and organized multiple. That's why I stopped posting. I don't want blood money." And Snap actually replied and said, "Hi, can you please send us a DM so we can try to help?" And this is where Jeff actually dropped David's name and replied, "His name is at David Dobrik and he's traveling the world partying on your dime. Well, I have another surgery next month." And I was expecting to see a lot of support for Jeff speaking out like this, but I was shocked when I opened the replies and it was all people being like, "Stop bringing it up, get over it," and saying that he's just trying to look for clout. Like, it was shocking. One person said, "David in your head rent free, bro, get over it." And someone replied and stuck up for Jeff and said, "David nearly almost Jeff's head though." And I guess this person who was replying does crypto, so Jeff brought up the crypto scam that David promoted a few years ago and said, "He's just trying to get clout, don't give him any. He's a crypto scammer just like David. We didn't forget those bunnies you scammed your audience with at David Dobrik." Another person replied and said, "Ugh, Jeff, honestly, at this point, just stop. You're using his name and what he did for clout and money. You can't live off talking about something else." And Jeff replied and said, "He's got no clout anymore, and I don't need or want any more. I'm doing just fine on my own." Someone else said, "Damn, all these skeletons popping out of the closet this week. What's in the air?" And Jeff said, "Wait till trial and you see their lies. This was a failed prank from an immature 28-year-old. Nobody picked up Casey Neistat's documentary for a reason." And a lot of people have been wondering what happened with that documentary. We all knew it would probably take a long time to be picked up by a streaming platform, but it's been well over 2 years now, and there's been no new news on any possible release date to the public. A few months ago, Casey did talk about finding someone to distribute it, but it ended up falling apart because of political reasons.
And like we had some really interesting distribution opportunities that kind of like came and went and weren't dealt with well. And then like very recently, and I don't know how to say this without causing a bunch of trouble, like very very recently we had a very, very interested party that was the perfect place to distribute it. And it fell apart at the 9th hour because of political reasons. I believe because of political reasons that had nothing to do with me or the movie itself, but somebody involved with selling it was fired from his job at the last minute. It kind of put us in a compromised position. I don't know that that's why the sale didn't go through, but it's one of these things.
Casey also went on Jeff FM a few months ago, and he admitted that he could release it if he wanted to. He could just put it up on YouTube, but he's been trying to get someone to pick it up.
The nut of it is like I released it, and I feel weird about having not released it.
Yeah.
I could if I wanted to put it on my YouTube channel, but like we had distribution opportunities that were really exciting and they kind of all fell through for circumstantial reasons.
He also talked about falling out with David over the documentary.
Like I really love David. I still do. And I did then. And he was a wonderful, and I know that was the fact that I did that was very challenging for him to confront, which I understand. And like it, had huge impact on our friendship. We don't speak anymore. And I understand that. I expected that, but it makes me feel weird. I've never had a person in my life that I've cared about or known as well as him that has, kind of divorced me like that.
So who knows if we'll ever get to see it, but Jeff seems to think there's a very strong reason why no one wanted to pick it up. I really don't think anyone wants to pay for a documentary that could get them involved with David or any legal troubles that he might have or what may come out about him. Tana also joined Jeff on this week's episode of Jeff FM, and they revealed a lot of new information about the lawsuit. They started off by reminiscing on the dynamic they had with David while they were still friends with him.
And I was thinking to myself, and I was like, what drew me to him? And what it was, I wonder if his friends also felt this way. It was like, I felt like David never really liked me or like really ever took the time to get to know me. And I used to love to like chase some people's approval that I felt like were more successful than me.
That's Hollywood. That's the Me Too movement. People abusing their power, and they know they can. When you get to a level of ego like that, you think you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Jeff said he was really happy during that time in his life. He had what he thought was a great group of friends. They were all shooting content together, and then their true colors showed after his accident. Now, this is where Jeff revealed something we never knew before. He said Natalie actually forged Jeff's accident report and said on a legal document that Jeff was the one driving the excavator.
Natalie forged my fucking accident report saying that I was driving the crane. Do you know that?
Yes.
Did I ever say that on the internet publicly?
I don't think so.
Should probably save it for court.
So you can understand why Jeff has also been coming for Natalie. It's not just because she's David's assistant, it's because she allegedly tried to cover up an accident and then pin it on Jeff. Hopefully Jeff still has that document in his possession because that is some major evidence, and it sounds like that's only a small glimpse into what may come out in this lawsuit. Unfortunately, it seems like getting an actual trial date is being pushed further and further away because of David. We've all heard those horror stories of these companies with a ton of money trying to push these lawsuits back until the person suing them runs out of money and can't afford to continue on. And it sounds like that's what David is trying to do to Jeff.
Yeah, how does that? So he can just keep paying to like elongate the court time?
Yeah, he's off and just get up partying.
It's just crazy what people, like what money really can do.
Jeff also talked about his recent interaction with Todd. Jeff and Todd used to be really good friends, and of course, he ended up sticking by David after everything that happened, and things only got worse after Todd confronted Tana and tried to say that there were two sides to every story. Jeff said he actually ran into Todd at Coachella this year, and he had a pretty civil interaction.
Something to Todd at Coachella at one of those guest parties. I'm always down for some action. He walks over to me. Todd was one of my best friends, He comes over to me and he's like, yo, like, he was nice and cordial, And I do have times where, like, I miss that friend group.
He said the reason Todd had an issue with him was because Jeff was calling Natalie, who was Todd's girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell.
But he was mean to you, and the issue he had with me was me calling Natalie Ghislaine Maxwell. And he's like, you called her this. And we had like a little, like it wasn't hostile, but we had like an actual 5-minute conversation.
He also talked about Casey Neistat's documentary on David. A lot of people have been just waiting for that to finally come out one day, but it sounds like Jeff doesn't actually care if it does anymore. Apparently, there's so much more to the story than what Casey showed in his documentary, and Jeff wants the whole truth out there.
Like, I appreciate Casey for showing me the doc before.
I think Casey should release that.
I don't think he should release it because the story's not over. The story's just getting started.
Okay, that's fair.
I haven't told the rest of it. And Casey, I had him on my podcast. I respect Casey a lot. But Casey has this story that's basically just saying like, oh, he got canceled and, you know, it's over. But there's so much more to it. I think it's just not truthful enough. Finish the thing right.
He also addressed the podcast that he did with Casey 6 months ago. In that episode, they did touch on David in the documentary, but a lot of people felt like Casey was still protecting David. It was clear that he didn't want to say too much about David, despite him and David falling out over the whole documentary, and he even went as far as saying that David is a good person.
Yeah.
You know, he told me to my face, David's a great guy. And I respect Casey a lot, so I just sat there and ate it.
That's crazy.
Like, bro, make the thing right. Because I already told my story was watered down. Mm-mm. When I do tell the real story, Casey's documentary is going to be a fictional film or whatever.
A rom-com.
Yeah. Yeah.
All he wants is the full truth to be put out there, and it sounds like Jeff might be taking matters into his own hands. Yesterday, he announced that he deleted his original documentary on his accident. He tweeted, "I deleted the documentary off YouTube. That was made to protect David when I was still blind to who he really was. No pun intended. I'm recutting it and telling the truth this time. I don't care about money. This kid has plenty from at Snapchat and keeps pushing back trial." He also talked about David and his legal team and how they've been delaying this trial from happening. He wrote, "I'm no rat. I didn't want to have to go this route, but with these brands supporting him and enabling him to keep pushing back trial and having a new surgery coming up while he's out partying, I need to get this anger out of my system. I don't care if it's used against me in court, I will get justice or die trying." Then he tagged Snapchat, guess who David's been working with, he tagged David, and he said, "New documentary coming soon. This time, it will be the truth." He also posted a picture that appears to show David balding and said, "Karma should have never went against me. I'm your one victim that's not scared to destroy you. Hopefully at Snapchat and at Guess Originals can pay for your hair transplant, you slimy. I want my money and I want it now, or I'll just keep having fun." And then it looks like he tagged the picture as David Dobrik's hairline. And this is all coming out after Jeff just went through yet another surgery to fix his vision. He posted about the surgery on Instagram and said, "Back at the eye doctor for another surgery. You at David Dobrik. But don't worry guys, this time I'm with the best in this business. Go show this handsome doctor some love. He's gonna get me all fixed up so I can stop complaining to you guys." But this is coming out of my own pocket, just like the rest of them, because that weasel at David Dobrik is a pathological liar. So now that more information is coming out and Jeff is bringing awareness to the fact that Snap is funding David's lifestyle, a lot of people are calling on Snapchat and the brands that he works with like Guess to stop supporting him. David's whole Snap is just filled with him living this amazing life, traveling the world, partying, purchasing houses and cars. That's not someone who's scared that they might lose everything soon. That's how someone acts when they have a massive ego and think their money can buy them out of everything. David is probably hoping that his big shot lawyers can push this case back until Jeff either financially can't do it anymore or mentally can't do it anymore. Having to file motions and relive parts of the accident over and over again and retell his story, all while having things be delayed while David lives this carefree life, is definitely a lot to deal with mentally, and David probably hopes that Jeff will just give up and walk away. David is going to be waiting a long time if that's the case, because Jeff has said that this isn't about money to him, and if he wins, he's actually planning on donating some of it to charity. He said, "You'll see when we go to trial. I don't want money. I have plenty and I don't live a lavish lifestyle. I'll give it to charity. I just want justice and to make him suffer if I have to. Pisses me off seeing him partying and running from his problems." He also said David has never paid him any money for what he did to him, writing, "He never paid me a dime. The truth will come out soon." Now, do I think Snapchat will listen to Jeff and actually take David off of their platform? Probably not. At the end of the day, it's all about money for these platforms, and you can bet David is probably bringing them in a lot of money and viewership. David likes hiding over there because there's no comment section where he can actually be held accountable for what he's done, but it sounds like Jeff isn't letting David get away with that. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think about everything down below, and I'll see you next time.